I should have known something was wrong the moment Moira called. My daughter rarely invited me anywhere anymore, not since she'd married Shane 3 years ago. Our relationship had become a series of obligatory holiday visits and stilted phone calls where she'd ask about my health, and I'd ask about her job, both of us carefully avoiding any topic that might lead to an actual conversation. So when she suggested dinner at Kazumi's, the upscale hibachi restaurant downtown, I was suspicious, but I was also lonely enough to accept. "Just the 3 of us," she'd said, her voice bright in that forced way I'd come to recognize. "Shane's been wanting to take you somewhere nice." Shane. My son-in-law with his pharmaceutical sales smile and his tendency to check his phone during conversations. The man who'd systematically isolated my daughter from everyone who'd ever cared about her, all while maintaining the perfect veneer of a devoted husband. I arrived 15 minutes early, as was my habit, and waited in my car. Through the restaurant's large windows, I could see the theatrical flames leaping from the hibachi grills. I could hear the occasional burst of laughter from the diners. I remembered when Moira was 7, how she'd begged me to take her to a place like this, how her eyes had grown wide, watching the chef juggle eggs and flip shrimp into his tall hat. That little girl seemed like a different person now. At exactly 7 o'clock, I walked inside. The hostess, a young woman with her hair pulled back in an elaborate bun, greeted me with practiced warmth. "Reservation for Hendricks," I said, then caught myself. "Sorry, I mean Hartwell, Shane Hartwell's party." She scanned her list, nodded, and led me through the restaurant. We passed the sushi bar where chefs worked with precise economical movements and entered the hibachi section. The restaurant smelled of searing meat. It smelt divine. Moira and Shane were already seated at one of the large communal tables. My daughter stood when she saw me, and for a moment I saw genuine happiness cross her face. Then Shane stood too, and something in her expression shuttered closed. "Hi, Mom." She hugged me, and I felt how thin she'd gotten, all sharp angles beneath her expensive dress. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," I said, and meant it. She'd always been beautiful, even now with the shadows under her eyes that her makeup couldn't quite hide. "Mrs. Hendricks." Shane extended his hand, his grip just a fraction too firm. "Good to see you again." "It's been a while," I replied, taking my seat between them. We were joined by another couple, the Bartholomews. They introduced themselves, celebrating their anniversary, and a nervous-looking young man named Justin, who was apparently on a first date with the woman beside him, though she seemed far more interested in her phone than in him. The chef arrived moments later, pushing his cart laden with ingredients. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of angular face that suggested a mixed heritage I couldn't quite place. His name tag read Riku, and when he smiled at our table, I noticed it didn't reach his eyes. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his accent barely perceptible. "I'm Riku, and I'll be your chef tonight. We're going to have some fun, make some good food, and I promise no one will leave here hungry." The table responded with polite murmurs. Shane had already ordered a bottle of expensive sake, and he poured generous amounts for himself and Moira. He offered me some, but I declined. I wanted my head clear. Riku began his routine, the standard hibachi performance I'd seen variations of before. He juggled his spatulas, made a joke about his cooking being inflammatory, and created the obligatory onion volcano that erupted with oil-fueled flames. The anniversary couple laughed and took pictures. The first date woman barely looked up, but I watched Riku, and the more I watched, the more certain I became that something was profoundly wrong. It wasn't anything obvious. His technique was flawless. He chopped vegetables with machine-like precision, kept his workspace immaculate. He never missed a beat in his practiced routine. But there was something in the way he moved, a certain tension in his shoulders and the way his eyes kept returning to Shane. And Shane, I noticed, had stopped smiling. His jaw was tight, his hand wrapped around his sake cup with enough force to make his knuckles white. He was trying to appear relaxed, but failed miserably, and Riku was watching him fail with what I could only describe as satisfaction. "So, Shane," Riku said casually as he scraped rice onto the grill, his spatulas moving in rhythmic patterns. "You look familiar. Do you come here often?" "First time," Shane said too quickly. "Ah." Riku smiled that empty smile again. "My mistake. You just have one of those faces, I guess. Very memorable." Moira glanced between them, confused. "Have you two met before?" "No," Shane said. "I don't think so," Riku said at the same time, in a tone that suggested quite the opposite. I leaned back slightly, observing. This was more than coincidence. The air between them crackled with unspoken history, and Riku was in complete control of whatever game they were playing. The chef began preparing the meats, and I noticed his hand hovering over one particular pile of chicken. He glanced at Shane again, then at the array of seasonings on his cart. "Any allergies I should know about?" Riku asked the table. Everyone shook their heads. Shane said nothing. "No allergies," Moira answered for him. "We're good." "Excellent." Riku's smile widened slightly. "I'd hate for anyone to have a reaction." He prepared the anniversary couple's shrimp first, making them laugh with his trick of catching a piece in his hat. The first date pair got their steak cooked to perfection, though the woman still barely looked up. Then he turned to our portion of the table. "And for the happy family," he said, the emphasis on happy so slight I almost missed it. "Chicken for all three?" "That's right," Moira said. "Actually," I interjected, surprising myself, "I think I'll have the steak instead." Riku's eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw real emotion there, a flash of approval, maybe even gratitude. "Good choice," he said. "The steak is excellent tonight." He prepared my food first, keeping up a steady stream of conversation with the other diners. But I noticed he'd positioned himself so he could watch Shane in his peripheral vision, and Shane was starting to sweat. "So," Riku said conversationally as he seasoned Shane and Moira's chicken, "do you folks live around here?" "Across town," Moira answered, "in Riverside Heights." "Nice area, expensive." Riku flipped the chicken pieces with casual expertise. "Must be doing well for yourself, Shane." "We do all right," Shane said, his voice tight. "Pharmaceutical sales, right?" I asked my son-in-law, knowing full well what he did, but suddenly wanting to see how he'd answer with Riku watching. "That's right," Shane said. "Interesting field," Riku commented, never looking up from his cooking. "Lots of money in that, lots of, opportunities." The way he said opportunities made my skin prickle. "It's a living," Shane muttered. "I bet." Riku began plating the chicken, his movements precise. "You know what I find fascinating? How small the world really is. You think you can just move on from things, start over somewhere new, but the past has a funny way of catching up." He placed a plate in front of Shane with deliberate care, then one in front of Moira. The chicken looked perfect, glistening with teriyaki sauce and sesame seeds. "Mom, are you okay?" Moira asked. "You look pale." I realized I'd been holding my breath. "I'm fine, honey. Just wondering if we should have ordered something lighter." "The chicken's great here," Shane said, but he hadn't touched his fork. He was staring at his plate like it might bite him. Riku had moved on to cleaning his grill, but he was still watching us, watching Shane specifically, in the reflection of his polished spatula. "Please enjoy," the chef said. "I made it special." The anniversary couple was already eating, making appreciative noises. The first date pair had fallen into awkward silence. Moira picked up her fork. "Wait," I said suddenly. Everyone looked at me. I want to propose a toast first." I raised my water glass, scrambling for an excuse. To family and to the truth always coming out. It was clumsy, but Moira smiled and raised her sake cup. Shane, after a long moment, did the same. We clinked glasses, and Moira took a bite of her chicken. "Oh my word," she said. "This is amazing." Shane still hadn't moved. "Sweetheart, aren't you going to eat?" Moira asked him. "I'm not that hungry anymore," he said. Riku had returned to his station, ostensibly to prepare dessert for the other couples, but I could see him tracking our conversation. "You should try it," I said to Shane, hearing the edge in my own voice. "It looks like the chef put a lot of effort into your meal specifically." Shane's eyes met mine, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw genuine fear there. "What's going on?" Moira asked, looking between us. "Shane, you're being weird." "Nothing's going on." But his hand was shaking as he finally picked up his fork. "Actually," Riku interrupted, appearing beside our table with a small sake bottle, "I forgot to mention, this chicken has peanut oil in the sauce. I usually ask about nut allergies specifically, but I suppose I got distracted." He looked directly at Shane. "That's not a problem, is it?" The restaurant's noise faded to a dull roar in my ears. Moira had stopped chewing, looking worried. Shane had gone completely white. "Shane's allergic to peanuts," Moira said slowly. "Severely allergic. He carries an EpiPen everywhere." "Does he?" Riku's voice was soft, almost gentle. How fortunate that I mentioned it before he took a bite. He paused. That would have been unfortunate, almost like someone wanted to hurt him. "This is insane," Shane said, standing abruptly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "We're leaving." "Sit down," I said quietly. He looked at me in shock. Moira did too. "Mom, what?" "Sit down," I repeated, my voice harder than I'd ever used with my daughter present. "I think we all need to hear what's happening here." "There's nothing," Shane started. 7 years ago, Riku interrupted, his chef's persona completely dropped now. "I had a younger brother. His name was Thomas. He was 23, smart as hell, working 2 jobs to pay for community college. He wanted to be a teacher." The other diners had grown quiet, sensing the shift in atmosphere. The anniversary couple exchanged uncomfortable glances. "One night," Riku continued, still speaking in that eerily calm voice, "Thomas was driving home from his late shift at a warehouse. It was raining. A car ran a red light going 60 in a 35 zone and hit him broadside. Thomas died in the ambulance. The other driver walked away with a bruised rib." Moira's hand had moved to her mouth. Shane looked like he might be sick. "The driver was drunk," Riku said. .17 BAC, more than twice the legal limit. He had 3 previous DUIs, but he'd managed to keep his license through expensive lawyers and well-placed donations. The police found cocaine in his car, prescription pills he'd stolen from his employer, a pharmaceutical company where he worked in sales. "Oh no," Moira whispered. "The driver's name," Riku said, his eyes boring into Shane, "was Shane Hartwell." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the other hibachi grills seemed to have gone quiet, though that might have been my imagination. "That's not true," Shane said, but his voice had no conviction. "I've never—" "You served 8 months," Riku continued relentlessly. 8 months for killing my brother. You got off easy because you had money, connections, a good lawyer who convinced the judge you were remorseful, that you'd changed. You went to rehab, paid a fine, and walked away. You even kept your job, though they transferred you to a different state, different territory, fresh start. Moira was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "Shane, tell me this isn't true." "It was an accident," Shane said, and the fact that he didn't deny it hit me like a physical blow. I was different then. I'm not that person anymore." "Aren't you?" Riku's voice had gone deadly quiet. "Because I've spent 3 years looking for you. 3 years tracking you down after you changed jobs, moved cities, started using your middle name instead of your first. 3 years wondering what I'd do when I finally found you." "You were going to poison him," I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. "The peanut oil. You knew about his allergy somehow." Riku's jaw tightened. I work with a guy whose cousin works at Hartwell's company. Word gets around about who to avoid at the holiday party, who keeps an EpiPen in their desk. I've been planning this for 6 months, ever since I found out he lived in this city. I got a job at a restaurant I knew his type would eventually visit, and then his wife called to make a reservation, and I knew this was it. This was my chance. But you stopped yourself, I observed. I warned him about the peanuts, Riku corrected. Because at the last second, I looked at his wife, your daughter, and I realized that if I killed him, even if I made it look like an accident, even if I got away with it, I'd become exactly what he was. Someone who destroyed families. Someone who took away someone's person. Moira was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I moved my chair closer and put my arm around her. But I need you to know, Riku said, leaning down so he was eye level with Shane, that I could have. I could have killed you tonight, and for a moment I wanted to. I wanted you to feel even a fraction of the terror Thomas felt in those last moments. But you're going to live with this instead. You're going to live knowing that the brother of the man you killed served you dinner and held your life in his hands. And you're going to live knowing that your wife and your mother-in-law now know exactly who you are. Shane's face had crumpled. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I think about that night every single day. I dream about it. I wake up and for a moment I forget. And then I remember that I killed someone, that I took someone's brother, someone's son. But not enough to tell me, Moira said, her voice breaking. Not enough to be honest. You let me marry you. You let me fall in love with a lie. I wanted to tell you, Shane said desperately. So many times I wanted to. But you didn't. She stood up, wiping her eyes. You didn't, because you're a coward. You were a coward that night, and you've been a coward every day since. She turned to Riku. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry that I brought him into your restaurant, that I... Her voice broke again. This isn't your fault, Riku said gently. None of this is your fault. Moira looked at me, her eyes red and pleading. Mum, I need to get out of here. Can you take me home? Not to our house. To yours. Of course, baby. I stood gathering my purse. Of course. Moira, please. Shane reached for her. Don't touch me, she said, her voice like ice. Don't ever touch me again. I pulled out my wallet, but Riku shook his head. No charge. I think we've all paid enough tonight. As we walked toward the exit, I heard the anniversary couple whispering urgently to each other. Heard the first date woman finally look up from her phone. The manager was approaching the table, responding to some silent alarm raised by the change in atmosphere. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. Moira was shaking. Whether from shock or rage or grief, I couldn't tell. Maybe all three. I didn't know, she said as I unlocked my car. Mom, I swear I didn't know. I know you didn't, sweetheart. All this time, 3 years. How did I not know? She pressed her palms against her eyes. What does that say about me, that I married someone and didn't even know the most important thing about them? It says that he lied to you, I said firmly. It says that he was good at hiding his past. It doesn't say anything about you, except that you trusted someone who didn't deserve it. We drove in silence for a while. Then Moira said, That chef, Riku, he could have killed Shane tonight. He had every reason to, but he didn't. No, he didn't. Do you think that makes him strong or weak? I considered the question carefully. I think it makes him human, and I think it makes him better than the man you married. Moira laughed, a broken sound. That's a low bar. Yes, I agreed. It is. We pulled into my driveway. My house looked exactly as it had when she'd lived here before Shane, before everything had gotten so complicated. I wondered if it looked like a refuge to her now, or just a reminder of simpler times. Mom! she said as we walked to the door. Thank you for being there tonight. I don't think I could have handled that alone. You wouldn't have been alone, I said. Even if I hadn't been there, you would have gotten through it. You're stronger than you know. I don't feel strong. I feel like an idiot. You're allowed to feel like an idiot tonight. Tomorrow you can start feeling angry, and the day after that you can start feeling free. She smiled weakly. Is that the progression? That's how it worked for me anyway, after your father. She looked surprised. Dad cheated on you. That's not the same as killing someone. No, it's not. But the feeling of betrayal, the realization that the person you trusted most was lying to you, that part's the same. Inside, I made tea. Moira curled up on the couch where she used to do homework, where she used to watch Saturday morning cartoons. She looked small again, young, like the little girl who'd wanted to see the hibachi chef so badly. What do I do now? She asked. Tonight, you sleep. Tomorrow we call a lawyer. After that, you figure out who you are without him. You build a life that's yours. It's going to hurt. Yes, I agreed. It's going to hurt like hell, but you'll survive it. And you know what? That chef Riku, he'll survive it too. He made a choice tonight not to let his pain define him, not to let it turn him into something he'd hate. You can make that same choice. Moira was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Do you think Shane will try to contact me? Probably, but you don't have to answer. Part of me wants to hear him out. Part of me wants to understand how someone could live with themselves after doing what he did. And the other part? The other part never wants to see his face again. Both parts are valid, I told her. You don't have to decide tonight. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Riku. I got your daughter's phone number from the reservation. I just wanted to make sure she got home safely. I'm sorry for how everything happened tonight. I thought I wanted revenge, but seeing the collateral damage, I'm sorry I involved her. I showed the text to Moira. She read it twice, then said, Can I respond? It's your choice. She took my phone and typed slowly. This is Moira. Thank you for stopping yourself. Thank you for having more humanity than my husband. I'm sorry for your brother. I'm sorry that Shane robbed you of him. That's not on you to hear from the wife of the man who killed your brother, but I needed to say it anyway. A moment later, the reply came. Thank you. That means more than you know. Take care of yourself. You deserve better than him. Moira handed back my phone, fresh tears on her cheeks. Is it weird that I feel grateful to him? For exposing Shane, even though that wasn't his intention? No, I said, it's not weird at all. Sometimes the truth is a gift, even when it's wrapped in pain. She fell asleep on my couch around midnight, and I covered her with the same quilt she'd used as a teenager. I sat in my armchair and watched her sleep, this daughter I'd brought into the world, protected as best I could, and then had to watch make her own mistakes. My phone buzzed again. Shane, of course, calling, not texting. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again and again. After the fourth call, I answered. She doesn't want to talk to you, I said without preamble. I need to explain. You had 3 years to explain. You chose not to. Please, just let me... No, I said firmly. You don't get to just anything. You don't get to minimize this, explain it away, or convince her that somehow this is anything other than what it is. A fundamental betrayal. You killed someone, Shane. You took someone's life because you were too selfish, too drunk, too high to make responsible choices, and then you compounded that horror by building an entire life on a lie. I was trying to move on, he said, and I could hear him crying. I was trying to be better. You don't get to move on from killing someone. That's not how it works. You carry it. You own it. You let it change you fundamentally, but you don't get to pretend it didn't happen and trick someone into loving a fiction. I love Moira. You love the life she gave you, the respectability, the cover story of the reformed man with a beautiful wife. But did you love her enough to be honest? Did you love her enough to let her make an informed choice about whether she wanted to be with someone who'd killed a person in a drunk driving accident? He was silent for a while. That's what I thought, I said. Don't call this number again. Don't call her number. Don't show up at my house. If you have any actual love for her, any actual remorse for what you've done, you'll give her space to figure out what she wants without you pressuring her. And if she wants to work through this, if she decides to forgive me, then that's her choice to make, but I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you. I hung up and blocked his number. Then I did the same on Moira's phone, which she'd left on the coffee table. In the morning, I made pancakes. Moira shuffled into the kitchen around 9, her eyes swollen, but clearer than they'd been the night before. "You blocked him, didn't you?" she said, looking at her phone. "Yes. You can unblock him if you want." She stared at the screen for a long moment, then set the phone face down on the counter. "No, not yet. Maybe not ever." We ate in comfortable silence. Then Moira said, "I've been thinking about what you said, about who I am without him, and I realized, I don't know. I changed so much of myself to be the person I thought he needed. I quit my book club because he said those women were bad influences. I stopped seeing Aunt Rita because he didn't like her. I even changed the way I dressed because he had opinions about what looked classy." "I noticed," I said quietly. "Why didn't you say something? Would you have listened?" She considered this. "Probably not. I would have gotten defensive. Told you that you didn't understand our relationship." "Exactly. Some lessons you have to learn for yourself. Even when it hurts to watch? Especially when it hurts to watch." Moira poked at her pancakes. "I think I want to go back to using my maiden name, Hendricks. I liked being Moira Hendricks." "I think Moira Hendricks would be happy to have you back." She laughed a real laugh this time. "You know what's crazy? I feel relieved. Underneath all the anger and hurt and betrayal, there's this weird sense of relief, like I've been holding my breath for 3 years and I finally get to exhale." "That's not crazy," I assured her. "Part of you probably knew something was wrong. You just didn't know what. Do you think he's a monster? Shane?" I thought about this carefully. "I think he's a man who did a monstrous thing and then compounded it by being a coward. Does that make him irredeemable? I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But do I think you should waste any more of your life trying to redeem him? No, absolutely not. What about Riku? What he almost did? What do you mean? If he'd gone through with it, if he'd killed Shane, would that have made him a monster too?" I'd like to take a moment and pause. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Please show a kindness by clicking like and subscribe. It would help our channel so much. Let's continue our story. "I think," I said slowly, "that Riku is a man who's been drowning in grief for 7 years, and in that moment, he saw a lifeline, a chance to make the person responsible for his pain feel even a fraction of what he's felt. But then he grabbed a different lifeline instead. He chose to stay himself rather than become the thing he hated. That takes incredible strength." "I want to meet him again," Moira said suddenly. "Not now, but someday. When I'm not the wife of the man who killed his brother anymore. When I'm just Moira Hendricks again. I want to tell him I'm sorry in a way that matters. Maybe I could volunteer with an organization that works with families affected by drunk driving, or start a scholarship in his brother's name. Something that turns this horrible thing into something with meaning." "I think Thomas would like that," I said. "I think Riku would too." We spent the rest of the day making plans, practical plans. Lawyers to call, apartments to look at, belongings to retrieve from the house she'd shared with Shane. And bigger plans, who she wanted to be, what she wanted to do with a life that was suddenly, terrifyingly her own again. Shane tried to come to my house twice. Both times I refused to let him in. The second time I threatened to call the police. He left a letter in the mailbox. 6 pages of justifications and apologies and pleading. Moira read it once, then burned it in my fireplace. "He's still lying," she said, watching the paper curl and blacken. "Even to himself. He keeps saying he wanted to tell me, but there was never the right time. But there was. Every day was the right time. He just chose his comfort over my right to know who I was married to." 3 weeks later, Moira filed for divorce. The proceedings were ugly. Shane tried to contest it, tried to claim they could work through this, even had the audacity to suggest marriage counseling, but Moira was done. She'd found the steel in her spine that Shane had spent years trying to soften, and she wasn't giving it up again. I helped her move into a small apartment in the Arts District, the kind of place she'd always loved, but Shane had dismissed as too bohemian. We painted the walls in colors she chose. A warm terracotta in the living room, sage green in the bedroom. She bought plants and vintage furniture and books to fill the shelves Shane had always said were a waste of space. One evening, about 2 months after the dinner at Kazumi's, Moira came to my house with her laptop. "I found something," she said, and I could hear both excitement and nervousness in her voice. "There's an organization called MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. They have a program where victims, family members, and survivors share their stories at high schools, college orientations, DUI classes, educational outreach." "Okay," I said, wondering where this was going. I called them. I explained my situation, that I was married to someone who killed a person in a drunk driving accident, that I didn't know about it, that finding out destroyed my marriage and my trust in my own judgment. And they said my perspective could be really valuable, that people don't think about the ripple effects, about how drunk driving doesn't just hurt the immediate victims. It destroys families, marriages, futures. That's amazing, honey. There's more. She pulled up a website. I reached out to Riku through the restaurant, asked if he'd be willing to meet with me, no pressure, and he said yes. We had coffee last week. I was surprised she hadn't told me, but I tried not to show it. "How did it go?" "It went really hard, Mom, but also good. He told me about Thomas, about how smart he was, how funny, how he used to do impressions of their mother that made everyone laugh, how he'd saved up for a year to buy her a good winter coat, how he always made sure Riku got home safe from parties, even though Riku was the older brother." Moira's eyes were wet. "He showed me pictures. Thomas looked so young, so full of life, and I kept thinking about how Shane took that away, how Shane's selfishness on one night erased all the nights Thomas should have had." "What did you tell him?" "That I'm sorry. That I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry, and that I want to do something meaningful with this. I want to help make sure other families don't have to go through what his family went through. What my family is going through now." How did he react? He cried. We both cried. And then he told me something that I think might change my whole life. "What?" He said that for 7 years he's been carrying this rage around like a stone in his chest. That it was poisoning everything, his relationships, his work, his ability to feel joy, and that night at the restaurant, when he realized he couldn't actually go through with killing Shane, when he realized that revenge wouldn't bring Thomas back, or make the pain go away, it was like the stone cracked open. It didn't go away, but it somehow became lighter. She leaned forward intently. He said that I could be angry at Shane for the rest of my life, and it would be justified. Or I could take this terrible thing and transform it into something that honors Thomas's memory, and maybe saves other lives. And that choice is mine. The anger will always be there if I want it, but I don't have to let it define me. "That's very wise," I said. "So I'm going to do it. I'm going to train with MAD. I'm going to tell my story at schools, at DUI classes, wherever they need me. And I'm setting up a scholarship at the community college Thomas attended. The Thomas Reyes Memorial Scholarship for first-generation college students. Riku helped me set it up. We're going to fund it together. Together? She smiled just a little. Don't get any ideas. We're just allies, I guess. Two people connected by tragedy trying to make something good come out of it. But I noticed how her face softened when she said his name, how carefully she pronounced it, and I thought about second chances and redemption, and how sometimes the worst moments of our lives crack us open just enough to let in new light. 6 months later, I attended Moira's first speaking engagement at a local high school. She stood in front of 200 teenagers and told them about Shane, about the lie, about the man whose life was stolen, and the families shattered in the aftermath. I'm not here to tell you that one mistake defines you forever, she said, her voice steady and clear. But I am here to tell you that some mistakes you can't take back. Some choices create ripples that spread far beyond what you can imagine. Shane Hartwell thought he could outrun his past, thought he could build a new life on a foundation of lies, and maybe in some way he believed his own fiction. But the truth always comes out, always. And by then, the damage is so much worse. She paused, looking out at the sea of young faces. Tomas Reyes was 23 when he died. He wanted to be a teacher. He would have been amazing at it, and every student he would have taught, every life he would have touched, all of that was stolen in a moment of selfish stupidity. Don't be that person. Don't be the reason someone's brother never comes home. Don't be the lie someone else has to uncover. The room was absolutely silent. After the assembly, several students came up to talk to her. One girl, crying, said that her older sister had been killed by a drunk driver 2 years ago. A boy admitted he'd driven drunk just last weekend and hadn't thought it was a big deal. It's a big deal, Moira told him gently. It's the biggest deal. Please, please don't do it again. Riku was waiting in the parking lot when we came out. He'd taken the afternoon off from the restaurant to be there. You were incredible, he told Moira. I was terrified, she admitted. But you did it anyway. Thomas would have liked that about you. He paused, then added softly, I like that about you. Moira blushed, and I decided it was time to give them some privacy. I'm going to grab coffee, I announced. Moira, I'll meet you at home. She barely heard me, too focused on Riku. I smiled and walked away. Later that evening, she came to my house for dinner, as had become our routine. He asked me to dinner, she said without preamble. Like a date dinner, not a scholarship planning dinner or a grief processing dinner, an actual date. What did you say? I said yes. Is that crazy? Is it too soon? Is it too weird? Do you want to go? Yes, but I'm scared. What if I'm a terrible judge of character? What if I pick wrong again? Then you'll learn from it again, I said simply. You can't live your life afraid of making mistakes, honey. You can only try to make better choices and trust yourself to handle whatever comes. Riku isn't Shane, she said, like she was trying to convince herself. No, I agreed, he isn't. For one thing, he's someone who looked his darkest impulses in the face and chose differently. That's not nothing. The divorce was finalized 8 months after that dinner at Kazumi's. Shane sent one final message through his lawyer. He was moving to another state, starting over again. He'd completed an intensive rehabilitation program and was volunteering with an organization that helped addicts get clean. Do you think he's actually changed this time? Moira asked when I told her. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. People can change, but it's not your job to care whether he does or not. I know, I hope he has. Not for him, but for everyone around him. I hope he never hurts anyone else the way he hurt Thomas, the way he hurt you and me and Riku. That was growth, I thought, being able to wish for someone's redemption even as you walked away from them. A year after the divorce, Moira and Riku opened a community center in Thomas's name. It offered free tutoring for students, support groups for families affected by drunk driving, and a scholarship office where they helped first-generation college students navigate financial aid. At the opening ceremony, Riku's mother spoke. She was a small woman with grey-streaked hair and her son's same dark eyes. "My boy Thomas is gone," she said, her accented English heavy with emotion. "Nothing brings him back. But this place would have made him so happy. He always wanted to help people. He always wanted to teach, and now, because of his brother and Moira, he still does. His memory teaches, his name opens doors. That's not nothing. That's everything." Moira cried through the whole speech. After, when people came up to congratulate them, she kept Riku's hand firmly in hers. I watched them together, these two people connected by tragedy, building something beautiful from the wreckage, and I thought about revenge, about how easy it would have been for Riku to go through with his plan. How satisfying that moment of power might have felt, and how empty it would have been after. Instead, he'd chosen something harder. Something that required waking up every day and deciding again not to let his pain consume him. And in doing so, he'd given Moira a gift. The truth about who she'd married and the chance to choose differently. Later that night at my house, Moira said, "Do you think everything happens for a reason?" "No," I told her honestly. "I think terrible things happen, and we don't get to choose that. But we do get to choose what we do with them. Riku chose not to become a killer. You chose to transform your anger into action. Shane chose to run away again. Those were all choices, not fate." "I'm happy," she said wonderingly. "Is that okay? Is it okay to be happy when it all started with something so awful?" "It's more than okay," I assured her. "It's exactly what Tomas would have wanted, and it's exactly what you deserve." She hugged me tight, this daughter who'd been lost and was now found, who'd been broken and was now healing, who'd been lied to and now spoke truth. I thought about that night in the restaurant, watching a hibachi chef prepare a meal with murder in his heart. How close we'd all come to a very different ending. How one man's decision to choose mercy over vengeance had created ripples that were still spreading, touching lives in ways none of us could have predicted. Sometimes revenge is a dish best not served at all. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone live with their conscience. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, truth arrives in the most unexpected places, like at a hibachi grill, where a chef with steady hands and a shattered heart decides that some debts can't be paid with violence. They can only be paid forward in kindness and redemption and the slow, difficult work of healing.